feeling.
Good morning to you all. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. It is Sunday, and I hope you have found your morning beverage and a cozy space to join us today. We are calling all caregivers as we chat in this episode. This is your host, Becky McNattin, along with Tara Martini. We're happy to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Becky. So, Becky, I have an assignment for you, a former teacher here.
Okay.
What I want you to do is think about the following scenarios, and I would love it if our listeners did the same thing as they're listening to these scenarios. I just want you to think about each one and think about how your parent or guardian responded when these things happened.
Okay.
Okay? First, you spill your drink all over the dining room table at dinner.
Okay. Yeah.
Think about how your parent or guardian responded.
Remember that well.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like it's not really a dinner unless a small child accidentally tips everything.
I very vividly remember my dad saying there were like 10 years of his life where he didn't get a meal where he got to have it warm because somebody always spilled something.
It's true. I just don't understand. It's just life.
Yeah.
The next one is you are past curfew, coming home from a friend's house, boyfriend's house, a party, whatever it is. Think of how your parent or guardian responded to that.
Okay.
Whether you got busted right when you got home or the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
What about when you did poorly on a test or received a bad grade?
Yeah.
And then lastly, when you engaged with your parent or a sibling or relative in a verbal fight. How did your parent or guardian respond to that fight?
It has me thinking about several different experiences and even the ways that maybe the moment changed what was the response from caregivers. Like the specific scenario, like where were we as there was a verbal fight? Or where did I highlight that I did poorly on a test? Were we at home? Were we at somebody else's house?
That's a great point. The setting of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking about, certainly I see it different as an adult now, but where were my parents? Were they just coming home from work? Was it a Saturday afternoon? Were we at the dinner table? So where were we sharing these things, and maybe how were they coming to those moments? I didn't notice that as a kid.
Right. That's a great point.
And when I showed up late from curfew, what did they have going on the next day? Or I didn't know those things as a kid.
Well, and also looking at, so the setting, the environment in which took place can change the reaction, but also how accurate is my memory of that,
Ooh,
right?
Yes.
Because if I asked my parents these same scenarios, I wonder what their response would be. But what matters is, as a child, what was our lived experience?
Yes.
Right?
Well, it's so much about perspective.
For sure.
That even in moments, I can think of examples where my parents remember something vividly that happened and I don't remember it at all, or the vice versa, where I say, do you remember when? And they don't remember it whatsoever. And what the reaction was, I might have a clear depiction of in my head, and whether that's true needs to get suspended in this sort of caregiver dysregulation responses.
Well, and it is, and we'll talk about later on in the episode about how anger plays into our memory because there is a strong correlation. It's also this idea of, just as you said, of parents remembering a situation very differently. According to my mother, she always says, it's as though you had no childhood. You don't remember anything about your childhood.
I totally love this topic. Yes.
Think about it, though. Like, how many of us are in that situation?
Right.
So we're going to jog that memory of ours, and we will continue this in just a moment.
Join us when we come back to dive into children experiencing anger and how we as caregivers can model a healthy way to express big feeling. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud.
From nobody else, all you got to do now. In a world full of strangers, you don't know who to trust. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost. can't go it alone.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Becky McNattin, along with Tara Martini. So let's jump right back into exploring anger, especially with kiddos, and pick up where we left off before the commercial break.
Sounds wonderful. So before the commercial break, in case you're just joining us now, we discussed different scenarios in our childhood and how our parents reacted to those situations, whether you sneak in late or get a bad grade. And so there's obviously a reason I asked, how did your parents take it? Is that, I know this is difficult to kind of take in, but if you think about it, anger and how it's expressed and received can be generational.
Ah, okay. Say more about that.
So think of it this way, and we're going to do a lot of this today, thinking of our parents and then ourselves as caregivers, is if you think about how your parents handled anger, it impacts then how you are receiving and expressing anger. So it will be how many times do you hear, whether it's in a movie or in a show or in reality, where you know that your partner was raised by a yeller or a screamer, and they hated that about their father.
Mm-hmm. Or mom.
And then they end up doing the exact same thing. They're the screamer and they're the yeller. And you're like, wait a second, but you're doing exactly what you hated about your caregiver. And it's that piece of, because that is all they knew.
That was the modeling.
Right? That was the modeling. And we're going to talk about the importance of modeling today. But it's that piece of just taking time and at least to think about, wow, is that true for you and how you were raised? Mm-hmm. And it's that piece of, we're going to talk about kiddos being regulated or dysregulated or unregulated today. But if you think about it, if you are angry as the caregiver, your child is not going to respond in a regulated way, right? If you're angry, the kid is going to match or respond to your anger.
Okay, so you're saying if you're a dysregulated caregiver, you will have a dysregulated response from the child.
Right, because think of it this way. I'm yelling at you and you're my child, Becky. I'm yelling. Either the kid is going to choose to yell back and match that anger, or they're going to respond in fear. And they're going to shut down, they're going to avoid, they're going to leave the situation. But either way, their reaction is the response to you being angry.
Okay.
And so it is this piece of parents, it is all about the delivery.
Okay.
And boy, when prepping for this episode, when I started, like back in school, when I started learning more about like family and marriage therapy and all those things, it gave me a really close look at how I parent.
Yes.
If you're not a parent, totally fine. You don't need to be a parent. Think of how you interact with your nieces or your nephews or just people in general.
Just strangers.
Right?
Children.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So it's that piece of, in that moment, my kiddo can only be, or student can only be as regulated as the parent.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, to be aware of that.
Yes. And if you can just be aware of it, it's a huge, huge thing. Just think of it this way. For example, if your boss storms into your office and yells at you to do a task, what's going to be your response, Becky?
Well, probably shock, actually.
Because you're the boss. You're like, who did this person come from?
I think it goes back to our last week's episode of Anger Languages. What am I immediately activated to? I have learned about myself, as I called out to you and listeners last week. I tend to use indignation. So I'm kind of a like, how dare you do this?
Right.
I probably go into a very dysregulated space myself.
Okay.
And I could see how, your example of boss comes in for any of us as we're all participating in this discussion right now. It escalates the moment.
Right. It's that survival mode of, oh my gosh. Now think of how that exact same situation would be different if your boss just came in, still had to talk about the same icky concept or conversation, but came in with a calm voice and not an angry demeanor.
That makes so much sense.
And that's the whole piece of parents. It is delivery. Delivery is everything. As a former teacher, having over 20 years of being a teacher, and then being a therapist, I can say there are times where I don't even need to talk to the parent more than 30 seconds. And I go, oh, if this is that parent's energy all the time or their delivery, it completely makes sense how their child responds to conflict, to anger, to any situation. And so it's so important that we're careful with our delivery, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've had, as you mentioned, 20 years of teaching, hundreds of students.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Over 1,000.
And recognizing that any moment that I show up, if I'm dysregulated, I'm automatically going to have, in your case as a teacher, a whole room of then dysregulated students, children, and getting practice of how am I showing up all day long. That's part of the job. Right.
Well, and if you think about it, that for anyone who's been a teacher, professor, preschool teacher, anything, doesn't matter the age. If I walked into my classroom of 35 eighth graders and I come in hot and I'm just yelling at them, my classroom is either going to have kids respond with, well, what got her today? Like, let's go, Miss Martini. Or, oh my God, what's wrong? Oh my gosh.
Right.
And you see them, and non-verbally, you can kind of see every kid's reaction.
Yeah, that explosion versus implosion.
There's never going to be a student that's just like sitting back, comfy, and being like, oh, she's freaking out right now, but I am so regulated and don't even care, and this is not facing me.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It is, and so automatically you've created this environment that's just, ugh. Again, think of it. You go in, you can be angry with the kids, but it's how you deliver and present yourself to them that's going to make all the difference. Okay? So we talked about, if you remember going back to a previous episode where we shared that anger is the mask. Do you remember that concept?
Yeah, refresh my memory.
Yeah. So it's that idea that so many people see anger as this first response or initial response or emotion.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
But it's really secondary because the mask we're wearing looks like an angry child, looks like an angry adult, looks like an angry grandparent.
Yeah.
But really, the emotion that's going on, that first initial emotion, is not anger. You take the mask off and what is lying underneath it.
So you're saying then that not only are we maybe wearing a mask, the child or children are also wearing masks. That what we might observe is angry behavior or angry looking behavior, or implosive behavior, like very shut down. It's a mask.
Yes. And so when you're working with an angry child, focus not on the anger. Focus on what's lying beneath or behind the mask. Okay?
Okay.
So many of us, if we really admit it, whether are working at a preschool and it's a 3-year-old, or you have seniors in high school in a classroom, all of us that have a moment where a kid is just losing it and is so angry.
Yeah.
And we've all had moments where it's
or you're
like,
in a grocery store.
Oh, 100%. Anywhere.
Errands, yeah.
Yes, anywhere. Yeah, you're in line at the grocery store and you see it and your response is, let's go. I'm going to bring it just as hard, okay? If not bigger.
Yep.
And the piece of, yes, that is a natural response, but that's not going to do anything. Right? It's only going to make the person more angry or more unregulated. And so it is that piece of don't focus on the anger that the child's experiencing. Focus on what is lying behind the anger. And so it's that piece of it's almost like a mystery that you have to solve.
Very good point.
Right? So think of it, and I know I kind of previewed this and hinted at this for the last episode about how the connection between anger and memory, there's a significant connection because when we are angry, it is very difficult when we are so unregulated to recall what occurred in that conflict.
Yeah, we're not sequencing in the same way that we would be if we were in a calm state.
Right. How many times have I talked to a middle schooler or a preschooler and I have said something about a comment they made while they were screaming, and the kiddo says, I didn't say that. And our initial reaction is, yeah, you did. Let me refresh your memory.
Yes.
But
Fact checking.
What if they don't remember?
Well said.
What if they don't remember? Mm-hmm. And again, it goes, you don't have that battle mentality, right? Mm-hmm. There was a saying that I found, and I just love it, and I think it applies to parents, caregivers, adults, children. It says, you cannot see your reflection in boiling water.
Oh. I love that. Yes.
Right?
Say it again.
You cannot see your reflection in boiling water. Similarly, you cannot see truth in a state of anger.
That makes so much sense. And we can't necessarily recognize ourselves in anger.
And our role that we played in the conflict. Mm-hmm. Right? And so think about how that quote, you cannot see your reflection in boiling water, think of the impact of this on a child who is not regulated.
Mm-hmm. If we can say to ourselves as an adult in that circumstance, either we're witnessing and it's another caregiver who would be responding, we're just watching this. If we can, or if we are the caregiver, that we say they can't see their reflection in boiling water.
They can't. And guess what? Neither can I.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Neither can I. And so that piece is so important. And the whole thing, to go back to before we move on with this episode, is to remember that the purpose of today is really to, how can you take all this information and reflect and go, we're not going to change your life overnight, but it's taking little snippets here and there and just developing a better understanding of your child or your student, right? You don't have to be a teacher. You could just be a parent or a relative or a loved one of children.
A neighbor.
Yes. Or like you pointed out, it can be a stranger, right? It can be the crabby teenager behind you in the grocery store or at the gas pump or at the mall. Because, we've all seen an angry teenager.
Yes.
Because that is what they like to do.
Yes.
And so it's that piece of, this can be applied to any situation. And all it is let's try to better understand where that anger is coming from and where it comes with children.
Okay.
So I want to tell you this, and I would love to know your reaction or thought, is that children most often feel anger from the perspective of frustration. What do you think that means, Miss Becky?
Children most often feel anger from the perspective of frustration.
Yep. So it's that mask, right? You see anger. The biggest emotion that kids are experiencing underneath is frustration.
Yeah, well, I feel like I need to sit with it because usually I think of and maybe it's children feeling anger at the dissonance of not being seen or not maybe having language for what it actually is going on. Right. So the frustration is actually tension of there is a mask, but there also is something else. Right.
There's something else. And it is an example from my teaching. I had a kiddo who did not speak any English. And so very quickly I had to work on learning Spanish. And this kiddo was very angry. And people just saw it as, well, he's an angry kid. Oh, should we get a 504 or an IEP or whatever it is? And my first reaction was, oh my goodness. Wouldn't you be angry if every day you came to school and no one understood a word you were saying?
You couldn't communicate verbally.
You could never communicate verbally how you felt. That'd be pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty anger-inducing.
Yeah.
If no one stopped to think about it, all you see is an angry child.
Yeah.
When, oh my goodness.
Right.
He was grounded in fear, frustration. And so it's looking at, okay, where does it come from? So 3 common root issues at the heart of anger for kiddos. Think fear, pain, or frustration.
Okay.
They can't get their shoes tied. They can't build their Lego tower like they want to. Or using your kid as an example, they cannot get that Lego flower or whatever they new amazing project they're working on.
Yeah.
Exactly how they would like it to be.
Yeah, the output isn't matching the mental picture or the expectation.
Right. And so I bring that up because it can be a 3-year-old child or it can be an older kiddo. So it says, which again plays into a kiddo who doesn't speak English, a kiddo who all you see is angry. But anger is the most common emotional issue when the kiddo is just stuck. When there's emotional challenges, we see anger.
Yeah.
And we see stuck. But we need to go, okay, we know it's coming from a place of fear or pain or frustration. But how does it show up? And then what are we going to do about it as the caregiver?
Yes.
So, anger, what does it look like? It looks like poor problem-solving skills. It looks
that makes total sense.
Difficulty resolving conflicts peacefully.
That lashing out.
Yes. It looks like social isolation.
Even removing themselves physically. And
it can be removing themselves or them removing themselves as a result of everyone isolating them.
Yeah.
And ignoring and choosing not to engage. Because again, all they see is anger.
Yeah.
A 3-year-old cannot look at a 3-year-old and go, oh, that's a mask he's wearing, right? He's just the jerk classmate who's angry all the time.
Yes.
Right? I say to my daughter all the time, if there is a crabby kid in class or just someone who, we've all experienced this as teachers, I look at it like, yes, you can look at that kid and be like, oh. Even like when we were in high school, you can name the angry kids.
Yes.
Right? They were labeled as angry. But what if people took the time to go, wow, they were wearing that mask of anger, but what were they really feeling inside? They were feeling unloved. They were feeling frustrated. They were feeling unseen.
Yeah. Traumatized.
Yes.
All sorts of things.
On so many different levels. And so it is, how many of you see your kiddo struggling to unwind at night, right? And you get reports from the teacher that like, oh, he tried to start a fight or, oh, he was yelling at whoever. How it shows up is then, they can't regulate when it's time for bed. And so they have all this energy. So no matter how it shows up, though, you need to remember to give anger the space it needs.
That's a really important point that we say whether or not we recognize that there's a mask and something that we know underneath it. We may be hypothesizing, like what's underneath this mask. We need to focus on the mask then. So anger needs to have its space. That we can't leap to what's underneath something if we haven't addressed this moment. That makes sense to me.
You can't. I'm completely putting you on the spot. But when it comes to, well, what do we do with it? What do we do when our kid is angry or our student or a client or whoever is angry? There's 2 things we can do. Connection and modeling. And one of those words I see a lot on what makes a good or bad therapist.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you see connection play into a good or bad teacher or a good or bad therapist? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think connection allows us to attune into the moment thoughtfully.
Right.
We can see the perspective that's there. And even as we've talked about through several episodes, connection really is rooted in trust. So it allows for some deeper sharing and a belief that we'll get through this moment. So if what we're seeing in the moment is what the mask is presenting, that we can say connection is like, I trust this moment. I trust this relationship.
Right.
I believe you. I believe us. This gets to be what it is.
And you kept repeating 2 words, and you did this last episode as well when we talked about anger. You say we and us, right? It's so important. The distinguishing factor of a good teacher, bad teacher, therapist, anyone who's doing their job that involves people and relationships. If you have that connection, that's where the change can occur. If that client sees you and is like, I feel connected to my therapist, they're more willing to put forth the effort, right?
Yeah, see that.
If you, Becky, are my preschool teacher and I have a connection with you because you make me feel safe, I will tell you I'm going to be more willing as a child to put work into making myself better in that because I have a connection with you, I feel safe. And no child can make change if they don't feel safe.
Yeah, and you're talking about connection that may be outside of the moment of anger.
Yes.
You're saying that connection is critical and building that relationship critical outside of those moments of dysregulation for both people. Because then we're coming into the moment of dysregulation with an awareness of each other.
Yeah, as a we.
As a we.
As a us.
Yeah.
That is what students will say all the time about like, oh, what makes a good teacher? Because we'll have that conversation a lot. And it's that piece of she cares for me as a human. She values what I have to say.
Believe that.
All of those things, and why I'm dwelling on this point is the piece of you cannot do any of this work about anger unless your child feels a connection and feels safe. The other piece of it, the second huge piece is the kiddos, whether it's students or your own children or relatives, have to see you modeling the behavior.
Modeling the regulation. Okay.
So going back to Becky sneaks in 3 hours past curfew and a parent yells at her, right? And is super unregulated. There is all you're seeing in response is like, I'm getting the anger. You're more likely then going to match that.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's that piece of if we bring calm, the student will receive calm.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And the idea that if you bring calm, it doesn't necessarily mean there isn't a consequence for the behavior.
I'm just saying bring calm.
You're just saying bring calm.
Yep.
You're saying don't punish the anger. Perhaps there's a consequence for the behavior after feels have been processed and we are in a regulated space. But you're not saying, oh, just because I think sometimes we hear from something like, just let it be.
No.
You're saying show up calm.
Yes.
Showing up with dysregulation doesn't mean that you're offering intensity of like, this is a big deal because I'm showing up like it's a big deal.
Right. And that's the whole thing. You can still, it's such a good point, Becky. You can still show up in a calm way that shows the kid, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. But I'm not going to come at you with anger and just match that because you're not going to get anywhere. But if you can come with the calm, it can still be, and that's the whole piece too of, this can be used in any situation, whether it is a kiddo who is just frustrated about their shoe, or it's a kiddo that just hits another student.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The piece of, it doesn't matter what the behavior is, you're coming in at a calm manner. Okay? And again, it's not disregarding the fact like, oh, well, my students can hit each other and it's not a big deal. It's a matter of by having that connection and them knowing and trusting you, they're going to know by the tone of your voice. They're going to know that even though you come in with the calm, that you're taking their behavior seriously. Right?
Yep.
And so it's looking past that anger. Well, here's the thing. Let's say your 2 children have been fighting nonstop and wrestling turned into a huge match of fighting verbally and physically. You're about to lose your crap and be like, let's go.
Yeah.
It's that pause of, okay, as parent, perfect skill. If you can't get regulated, then take a step away from it. And what we say is practice the pause.
Yeah.
Practice the pause.
Yes.
Give yourself some love and some moments to just go, okay, breathe.
Yep.
Because you should never forget to breathe as a parent or
Yep.
a teacher
Yep.
or a guardian. Breathe and know that living is hard. Living is hard.
Living is hard.
Living is
Caregiving
hard.
is hard.
Yeah, it's exhausting. And so it is, before you go in, regulate yourself by practicing the pause. And then when you are regulated, you can say to the child, first they have their space, you've let them be angry, let out all the feels.
Yep.
And approach that person, and you yourself take a deep breath. The kid will mirror it. If they can't, remind them. Just take a deep breath and then repeat to them, you are safe. We can handle this, and I will help you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You are safe. We can handle this. Okay?
I like that.
And it is that idea of you cannot problem solve with an unregulated kiddo. Right?
Yeah.
If you go into a kid screaming at the top of his lungs that he hates you and he wants his mom and he wants to go home from school, I'm talking about like preschool, kindergarten, not like 8th grader, because that's where the bigger emotions are seen, is you can't go at them with, let's problem solve. Okay, well, honey, have you tried this and this and this? Again, with the memory, they can't hear you,
Yeah.
right? They're not taking anything in because they're in survival mode. So it's that piece of let them feel the feels, let them know that they are safe and that they can handle this, and that I'm going to address it when the kid is regulated. Okay?
And that you are this compassionate container.
Yes,
For
exactly.
for that moment.
And I love that compassionate container, because the goal is to help the kiddo regulate and then address where that anger came from in that beautiful container. Right?
Yeah.
So some examples from my many years of teaching. I once handed back grades. Obviously, you know that's a big day, because you never know how students are going to respond to it. Because I think, well, every kid's going to know if they got an A, B, C, D, or F. And then inevitably they end up shocked. Like, how could I get a D? They thought they were going to get an A. And so I'm handing things back, and all of a sudden, in the clearest of ways, non-verbally, this male student conveys anger. Like literally, like face is red, hands are shaking. It is, I mean, just every part of him. I didn't even need to ask him.
Yeah.
And I just knew that he was not liking his teacher right now. It could have been so easy for me to go up and be like, what's your problem? I see that you're angry right now. Even a peaceful, I see you're angry right now. That kid is not going to respond well to that. There is nothing I could say that will not just infuriate that child. So I need to give him the space, right? I need to give him the space to be angry, to calm down just a bit. And then not in front of the entire class,
Yeah.
but alone,
Sure.
right? With the door open. Addressing that and helping him regulate and see through and all those things.
Yes.
And so my point is, think of the environment you're in. Whether it is in a preschool, a home daycare, your home. Think of the environment. How is the kid going to respond if you and his 4 siblings are all standing around him
Yeah.
and he or she is having, a moment? Or in a classroom. No child is going to receive it well if you address their behavior in front of 34 other kids.
Yeah.
So it's also thinking of how important the environment is. So, putting both of us on the spot, can you think of examples or an example in your life where you saw either a parent or a teacher react in such a way where you thought instantly, "Ooh, that is not how I would handle it"?
Well, first I'm thinking about how I've been a parent who I have done things that I look back
Or
on and
that
say,
too.
I would have done it not that way. because as you're talking, of course, we receive people processing as therapists and you as a teacher.
Yes.
Moments of dysregulation and focus on that. But we also think through our own moments. We are learners ourselves. Mm-hmm. We are parents who do not have all the answers. And so, of course, there are moments that I've seen people that I would say I would handle that differently. There are also a boatload of times that I think about my own behavior when I have shown up angry or done something. And even after the fact, I think about I need to repair that because I didn't show up as I'd like to. It makes me think about, strategies for that moment, for those moments, the moments that we're all learning. As you and I are learners with everybody, we're caregivers alongside folks. What would you say as strategies?
Well, and you bring up such a beautiful point that it isn't the outside and like looking on from the outside. It's that, oh my goodness, like our lived experience.
We're human beings.
Whether it is as a therapist, a teacher, a caregiver, whatever it is. So to me, the most important thing, and we may have to adjust our little outline here and maybe continue some more strategies after break as well. But strategies. So what can you do? This is the most important part for our listeners of, great, Tara, you told us about anger, but now what am I going to do? Well, from the very beginning, whether it's a classroom or a home, is set clear expectations from the start. And I'm not talking about while the fight is going on, but making sure that like this is, we are respectful, we are kind, right? We are open, we are vulnerable.
Yeah.
We celebrate each other. We love one another. Everybody is really good at doing that. As a parent after like a big fight, or as a teacher, we're really good at setting those clear expectations at the beginning of the year and at the beginning of like new units. But where we need to use them is set them and keep reminding, especially if there's kiddos that are developing their brains. Yeah, we need to remind them. And so I say set clear expectations and then repeat. Yeah. And before we head to break, I'm going to give an example that is universal. Repeat and keep going back to the strategies. One of my favorite little girls I used to work with on the playground, her reaction to everything was yell and hit. She wanted a space on the slide. Move over, bro. She was going to push you out of the way. Yeah. If she wanted to turn on the thing, she wouldn't ask. She would just cry or hit. And so I had been working with her on breathing techniques of when we get angry, we breathe. Okay? Yeah. It never would have been effective if I just shared that once or twice with her and then was like, peace out. Yeah. Go be regulated. Yeah. Yeah. But instead, I repeated it. I felt like maybe 100 times every single day. It involved me being more watchful and paying attention, being present with her. Yeah. Right? Because it was like I'd watch her and I'd start to see her escalate. And then I'd walk over in a calm way and say, remember, pause, breathe. And then we do the breath together.
Which is like providing a calm space by itself. Which is
no matter where you are.
Yeah, which is totally a strategy in helping kids manage that moment or cope through that moment. You were providing a calm space right there, wherever there was.
Yep. And there can be the playground. Safe. Yes.
Yes. Right between the two of you and to say it doesn't have to be a certain spot to feel safe. Anywhere where they are, we can just make the child feel safe.
Yep. And the key is by you repeating it and constantly going back, one, it's going to eventually turn into a habit for her. But it's also telling her, I'm not giving up on you. Yeah. Right? I am going to be there for you on this journey as you learn these new skills.
Yeah. You're saying, I hear you.
Yes. And I see you.
Yes.
And I see you.
And as it brings back to, you said, give the anger the space. You're giving the anger the space. Yes. You're saying you're providing the calming space to give anger that space. All fantastic strategies.
Yes. And we are going to hear some more when we get back from break.
We're going to head to commercial break right now. So many things to think about, but Feels Out Loud will be back shortly to talk through listener questions about caregiving and strategies to experience moments with the kids feeling big feels. Stay tuned, everyone.
From nobody else, all you got to do now. Nothing to lose. In a world full of strangers, you don't know to trust. All you see is danger.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly, or email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. We really do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about. I want to thank the listeners who have sent in questions about children and anger for the episode today. We got a lot of them. Mm-hmm. We picked just one because there were so many things to think about. And the question from the listener was really sort of two-parted, but could these strategies be used for other age groups other than young children? And if so, how could I adapt them to an adult?
Such a great question. And one that kept repeating itself. And the answer to it is, oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. These are universal things. The big piece to think of is you can still use all the same strategies, and we'll share a few strategies in a moment, or more strategies in a moment. But remember, it's just thinking of how can I translate that same phrase, one that an adult would receive well.
Using language that might be received in that setting with that particular person.
Right. But at the same time, realizing that so much of what we say to children can be used in the exact same way to adults because we're all human. Mm-hmm. And we're all that inner child.
I was just saying to a fellow coworker of ours literally 2 days ago that if we all just could have a sign that said, I'm wearing my 8-year-old self today,
yes,
we all have that inner child that's showing up in every interaction. So tell us about the strategies.
Yes, so here are a few more strategies, and then we can look at, when looking at it, do we need to adjust them for adulthood? So a random tidbit is, and I see teachers doing this all the time and parents, never yell across the room to address a conflict or episode of anger. How many times are we in the kitchen doing dishes and we're like, hey, you two, stop that. Or a teacher sees two kiddos fighting over a doll. Hey, so-and-so, stop that.
Yeah. Go to them.
Yes, because, again, in anger, we are not listening. Like, all we have is our experience, and it's tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well said.
Walk up to them in a calm way, just like an adult, right? How many times do we yell or whatever to an adult where go up to them? Don't yell from across the room or in a different room. Next, when someone is unregulated and you've got them a little more regulated, proximity is as effective as a hug. And what I mean by that is so many times we think, well, we should hug the kiddo to help them regulate because that is what they need. They need touch. Well, not everybody does because they may not feel super comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So to be respectful of it, I always say proximity is as effective as a hug. Let them come to you.
Well
Sit
said.
there.
Yeah.
And give them time. And you will see. Or sit next to them and let them breathe it out and all those things. And then it's that piece of, if I'm working with a 4-year-old, of just like touching his back or her back.
Yeah.
Right? And knowing I am here.
That calming space, as you've said.
Yep. And we have that connection. Mm-hmm. If you know the kiddo, obviously you will learn your students and you will learn your children and what they prefer, right? We have kiddos that are huggers. We have kiddos that are high-fivers. We have kiddos, whatever it is. Remember what it is and use that as your go-to as far as providing them that safe space. And part of that safe space may be a hug. And you will notice how they will decompress so quickly.
Right. Well, and
by just letting them know they're there.
Yeah, and you said, and I want to end the show this way, breathe. You are safe. You can do this.
You can.
And that's, those are like the 3 coolest things from the whole episode today.
We can all breathe,
That brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for listening this morning. Tune in next week at 9 as we think through emotion focused inward. Yes, all. We will navigate through self-criticality. Until then, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
Some do, some don't, some